This is the Muddy Waters podcast, special episodes, second special episode, we'll call it, with the Unquirer, also known as Richard. So thank you all for watching. The Muddy Waters podcast exists to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on here in our state so that we can be more informed people and vote more appropriately. Obviously, we have a conservative bent, which is different than the mainstream media, which is literally a propaganda arm of the left. So we're trying to help shed light on what's going on in our state and have conversations about how we can work together to take our state back from the tyrants that are currently running it. So thanks for being on again, Richard.
I'm back. Let's do this.
Yeah. And so unlike some of the other podcasts where we have conversations, this one's just, we're still having a conversation, but much less of an agenda and just kind of talking about what we can do, I think, to kind of organize and win back our state. For those of you who didn't see, one of the things I have to remember to do is please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm on all the different platforms. One of the reasons I do this is I know that a lot of people are not going to watch these full-length episodes, right? It's a long time. People have limited time unless you're working one of those jobs where you can just listen to a podcast from Spotify or Apple or whatever while you're working. A lot of people don't have the time or availability to do this, but what they can do is they can see shorts. So be sure to, especially on share, share, and subscribe to all the pages. So I'm on Instagram, X, TikTok. Although I think TikTok's going to ban me again soon. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as I have a Substack page. So, one of the reasons I have all these different things is because people get their information from different places, and we can help by making sure that we utilize those. So, like, share, and subscribe on those places so people can see the shorts in particular. I had one really fun short that has just kind of gone. I would call it Maine viral. We're over 14,000 views on X at this point. Where a teacher, this is from my podcast on Friday, was sharing that a number of his students. Talks about one in particular who were not citizens of the United States. Were here. They had come through a legal process, but they were not citizens, and they share that people told them that they were allowed to vote, and they got mail-in ballots in the mail, indicating that they or somebody else on their behalf registered them to vote. And so that clip has kind of gone viral. But those are the types of things. Find those clips, share those, because those are things that I think people need to see. Thanks, Bad Bake.
Okay, right now, it looks like the guy that's in our chat, Bad Bake, just sent me something showing that Graham Plattner is doing a 1 p.m. Ask Me Anything. What's this on? Oh, on Reddit. So,
if you want to signal more effectively that you're on the left,
yeah,
make sure you use Reddit.
Yeah, that could be wild.
Yeah.
So he's been completely orchestrated from the bottom up. This guy is wild. Bernie Sanders coming to Maine on Labor Day just to work with him.
That's pretty crazy. That's
not small.
Maine Mamdani, is that what we're calling him?
Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously there's so many people that have an axe to grind with Susan Collins, and I understand conservatives who are like, she's not my brand of conservatism, and they want to call her a rhino. But this is just an opportunity to think about the fact that, with the name recognition she has and whatnot, she's our best chance to win that Senate seat, I would say. The left is going to throw everything they can at her, and the option that we're going to have if we don't elect her. And again, before the primary, I'm not endorsing anyone, obviously, but just dealing with reality that there are a couple of people on the Republican side that are trying to challenge her, and they've got a really uphill battle. And then if they do end up succeeding in primarying her, then an even much more difficult battle. Trying to oust, trying to not oust, but a Democrat in a more blue state. I just try to remind people 6.5% is what Trump lost Maine by. So Maine is more Democrat than Republican. So anyway, yeah, they're putting a ton of money behind this guy. I think you commented on one of your posts that like he's already done like a dozen or more different podcasts, and like the entire mainstream media is like pushing information out about him. So it seems a bit, obviously, again, this is where the mainstream media is literally proving itself to be just an arm of the Democrat Party.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me because obviously I don't want him to win, and I don't agree with any of his policies. But then there's the greater part of this is look at how much they're putting this focus into Maine with this guy. Like they're having Bernie Sanders, a national figure, come to Maine on Labor Day weekend to work with this guy. All of our national media is promoting him. You have, simultaneously goes on all his leftist podcasts, gets more views than probably all of the Democrats running in any of the races right now combined by 1,000, right? Like he has a 9 million, like he just created his X account and has 9 million views on one of his posts, 4 million on another, or 1 million on another. I've just never seen anything like this in my entire life. Being on social media, I've never seen someone explode this big, and nothing's organic, right?
Right.
Because the grassroots is, hey, this person emerges, and then the media starts going, who is this guy? They're not doing that. They skip the who is this guy to, hey, we love him, right? Instantly, right. They skip the whole process, and it's very odd to me how much they're trying to push this. Like Maine's not a big state; we don't have a huge pull nationally. They are putting more effort and energy into this, like almost like this is like a Massachusetts or a much larger state.
So well, it's very easy to understand why, though, right? Maine is a blue state that has a red senator, right? If they want to pick a seat, this is one of their best opportunities to do it. That's like I think that's how they see it. Maine is slowly shifting more blue. And she obviously beat Sarah Gideon in 2020, I guess. Yeah.
How much was it, a landslide, or was it just?
It was 10%, I think, something like that.
That's pretty big.
I'll verify, but yeah, but I mean, that's what it's all about. So they're kind of banking on, I think partially it's conservatives who don't want to vote for her again. Women who maybe voted for her in the past, but because since Roe versus Wade was overturned as a result of, partly as a result of Brett Kavanaugh getting approved, despite the fact that, she's not in favor of that, they're still going to blame her. They're still blaming her for it. So I think.
Well, who do you think is going to win? Right now, I know we have 12 months up roughly. Who do you think is going to win? You're feeling right now, Susan Collins or Graham?
Susan Collins. Yeah, I'm not concerned. Like, this is the thing. It's like this guy, in my opinion, he's going to mobilize people to vote against him. You know what I mean? Like a lot of your conservatives out there that are frustrated with Susan Collins, right? And again, this is partly what they're banking on. But the conservatives that are frustrated with Susan Collins, if they see that this guy is the other option, they will get out and vote for her, right? And so this could be a good thing, right? In the sense that it could help us get higher voter turnout for Republicans.
But it looks like that's what they're doing on their side too. So they're using him as like the spearhead for all the races, right? So, and they're putting him everywhere. So he's kind of leading the charge, and behind him will be like Shenna Bellows, Pingree, all the other races, right? And so they're unifying behind him. He's unifying behind Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders in the lead, and you have offshoots like AOC, you have Graham Plattner, and they have this new they're rebranding as Democrat Socialists pretty much, right? All their policies are more socialist and left to what our old school Democrats were. Yeah. So he's actually, at first I was like, okay, these are the candidates that we have. It just seemed like a typical Maine election, but with a lot of like big hitters. Now we've had this new guy who seemed to have just gone in the front, taking the lead in the charge in rallying the entire state of Maine against quote unquote the oligarchy and Trump, right? And so I think that we shouldn't underestimate this movement and what they're doing here. I wouldn't underestimate it. I think that he is an actual real threat. Like
I'm not disputing that he's a threat. I think he is, right? But I think that if you ask me what's going to happen in November of 2026, I think we prevail. I think Susan Collins, assuming obviously that she wins her primary, which I have no doubt will happen. I just it's so hard to beat an incumbent, especially one. I think even if there are conservatives out there that are frustrated with her, I think they obviously are going to realize that the position that she has in the Appropriations Committee and the stuff that she's doing for Maine right now. I think that's the other thing is, she's strategically, I think, in this position now as the chair of the Appropriations Committee, delegating some money to big things here in Maine. I think that with your independent and moderate Democrats, I think that type of stuff matters a lot to them, more than it does to like the people who spend all their days thinking about politics, right? The average person is like, oh, this person generally does good things for Maine. I think that it's mostly more your politically motivated people that are angry with her on one side or the other.
So do you want to talk about the Maine state?
Well, I want to talk about actually briefly. Yeah, let's get to that in just a second. But I want to talk about like the fact that his thing has blown up. Hi, Truth Slinger and Happy Chick. I don't know why he's booing.
We have Michael in here. We also have that. Yeah, we have a lot of people watching.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Truth Slinger is booing. Maybe he'll enlighten us. Anyway, so
well, no, he's scaring you like a ghost. Like
I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was seeing it as like,
I know, Tim. We're on the same wavelength.
But talking about how Graham has like all of a sudden blown up and has all these followers and everything now. It is a ghost. So I was they were also commenting and asking, somebody was being like, is MAGA worried that Gavin Newsom has grown the number of followers he has on X by like 450% and all this other stuff, and in anticipation that he's going to run for president in 2028. And like, none of that's organic, right? Like with all these things, none of it's organic. It's like, who in the world is interested in Gavin Newsom and didn't already know who he was, right? Like they've been floating him out as potentially running. There were arguments that he was going to maybe step in place of Biden last year. And so when you see a lot of people all of a sudden gain a lot of followers, like how many of those are bots? How many of those are set up intentionally to make things look better than they are? I don't buy.
I don't think that. I think what they're doing is they're showing which candidates are willing to shift from being Democrat to Democrat socialist, and we're just using that term, right? So a lot of this boosting that you're seeing of like Gavin Newsom or Graham or any of these people is that they're shedding off the old normal Democrats that we're used to, the 1990s, where it's just simple identity politics. We're now getting this new reemergence of the Democratic Socialists, which is akin to everything that we saw in the UK and Europe. So it's the same type of people. Once they shed the woke part of it, all that's sitting there is going to be your Democrat Socialists, which will be on their pathway to Marxism and communists. They all believe that. And so like all of their ideologies align. They're all saying stuff like, we have to have universal healthcare.
It's a must. It's a must to be there. Yeah,
it has to be affordable housing, which just means government housing. If you're someone that's championing government housing and saying we need more government housing, get the hell out. I don't want to even hear that. That's all they are. So they're going to say whatever's needed to be said to try to reclaim power and then do what they did in UK and Europe. So, and I guess our job is to kind of prevent that as much as we can or defeat them.
Well, it's interesting because, like, not to be negative, but like, I have a hard time seeing, like, one of the problems with democracy, right, representative republic is to me, it seems like its natural, like, course is to eventually devolve into socialism and then oligarchy, communism, whatever. And we're already like a lot of ways along the way. And the reason I say that is because people vote in ways, people are selfish and they do things that they think are going to help them in the short term, right? So for instance, when rent control came up as a thing in Portland, I knew people who were like, "Oh, I don't want my rent to go up, so I'll vote in favor of rent control."
Yeah.
Right? Like literally was not at all interested in looking at whether or not this is long-term, big picture positive for society. Just were like, I'm selfish. I want this for me, right? And so that's just the reality. People are selfish, and so over time, I don't know how a democracy doesn't devolve into socialism without having like the most aggressive checks against it. But we're basically in an oligarchy right now, where because we are not upholding our own antitrust laws against these certain major corporations, and we've passed a lot of weird laws that give them a lot more rights. That I don't think are healthy. We're in a position where basically, and they basically own Congress, right? So we are already in this oligarchy, and we've already advanced so many socialistic principles where people get paid not to work, and they're looking to increase that. I mean, they're talking about Medicare for all. This guy's probably going to be talking about universal basic income as well. And talking about that, I mean, most people are so incredibly ignorant of how money works and how so many people are incompetent at math, like, and I say that not to be a jerk, but like they just feel uncomfortable when the topic of mathematics comes up, that they don't want, so that anything that has math as an element of it, such as economics, they have a really hard time with. And so they don't understand the overall process. And so, I mean, people who I think are smart people as well, when they got those free, quote unquote, free checks in the mail back in 2020 as a result of the pandemic, they were really excited. And it's like, do you not understand? Like, this is going to cost you so much more as it leads to inflation and higher taxes and all kinds of other things like that. That so many people, if you put like a ballot initiative or something like that, or you can't at the national level, but so many people want universal basic income or would vote in favor of it if they had the option, because as Truth Slinger is saying, they're low information voters, which is absolutely true. That they don't, and they're also voting thinking about it from a selfish perspective and not thinking about the long-term big picture consequences of these types of things. And so anyway, I think.
Do you think we'll have a civil war?
Aren't we in one?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in one. I guess you'd say like cold civil war.
Yeah. It's I think I would actually say it's beyond just civil, even like, so I think Candace, who I think has kind of gone a little bit off the rails, but Candace Owens back a couple of years ago was talking about how suggesting that we are currently in an ideological World War III, essentially. Like, this is beyond, like, as we learned from, if we're paying attention to what's going on in Europe, and what's going on in Australia and other parts of the quote unquote West, like this is a global struggle right now. It's so anyway, I think it's definitely more than a civil war, but here in America, yes, we have two. And I'm hoping to do a podcast series that's going to be called Civil Discourse with a woman who is unenrolled, but she leans and votes almost exclusively Democrat. She's frustrated with her party and shares a lot of the frustrations that we have, but also at the same time, basically, I don't know how to put it, but she still votes for Democrats all the time. Again, essentially, like I think it'll be a fun conversation to kind of talk about areas where we disagree and areas where we agree on the podcast, go down through a number of issues. But it's like having that conversation with her and like feeling like we almost could find some middle ground, and then getting to okay, so why do you vote Democrat right now? Like, what? We only just started that conversation, but it was, she has she wouldn't call him a nephew, but she has technically a cousin who is trans, and he knew he was a girl when he was 6. Or actually, the mom in this situation, this is again her cousin, but the mom in this situation didn't learn until like it didn't agree until the child was 6, but supposedly the child knew as soon as he was born or whatever. Anyway, and so it's like, how do you like? Okay, so up until that part in the conversation, right? I like, you know, a lot of logic and reason and great conversation about policy and about this and about that, and maybe, in my opinion, some naivete about a couple of items, but ultimately just like seemed like, oh my gosh, there's hope here. But then that comes up, and it's like, how do you if somebody gets to a point where they agree with that, and you talk about all the concerns about long-term effects of the hormone blockers and all these other different things, how can you move forward? Like, how can we find a way to convince people? And this is one of the people that was in the middle, right? That wanted to talk to people from the other side. From when I went to the Shelley Pingree event. So it's like,
it's tough. I think the time for like discussion and debate's been over for a while. I think the Republicans, the right it has realized that. And this year, maybe last year, was really that awakening finally for people to realize that, you know, people kind of already picked their sides, and now they're doing mental gymnastics to justify certain things. Some people on the left are, you know, they might actually not enjoy the transgender stuff, but they're like, well, they're so hell bent on being with the left that they're not going to switch over the right over the transgender stuff. So they're going to do mental gymnastics and try to justify it in their head, and they go, that's one issue I can bypass. They'll go, it's only this percentage, won't affect my kids, I don't care. And now, it's tough, right? Like, I think the woke stuff, I think we're not going to see as much now. That's being shut off. It's going to be purely on the socialist aspect.
Yeah.
Like actually Bad Bake is talking about like they're doing Ask Me Anything. And what was it? I stand right in the what does that one say? I stand right in the effing way of anyone who's going to try to come after the freedoms of LGBTQ. I guess maybe I'm wrong. I mean, if that's one of the questions or answers that Graham gave, maybe he's going to double down on the leftist stuff, the woke stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the other one he shared earlier, back up, we have multi-billionaires paying lower tax rates than you and me. Everyone knows it's long past time we address this to pass on billionaire.
Okay.
That's separate, but you're right.
Well, no, that question right there, the one that you just read about how the billionaires aren't paying enough. The reason that narrative doesn't make sense to the right, because we don't want higher taxes for anyone, right? We want to reduce the size. So I don't care if you cut taxes for billionaires. That's actually on the pathway to what I want. So when they say stuff like, oh, they're not paying their fair share, I say, good. Yeah, none of us want to be being fleeced and tax gouged. That's all they do. They're just parasites. The central planners are parasites trying to pull money out of everyone. And then they try to trick us to then demand more money from the companies. Oh, it drives me nuts.
It does. It's extremely frustrating. And what is interesting though is like, and what I would say, so there's a bunch of other stuff that we need to get to, I think, that people are saying over here, but about Bernie Sanders coming. But I think part of the problem though is it's a translation error, right? Like younger people. I don't know if this is shifting again, because there's a shift, obviously, in young men in particular, but younger people in general are not trusting the mainstream media anymore. But ultimately, like this anger about taxation, I think is less of a concern for a lot of your younger people. Not that they don't care, but I think the verbiage and the way in which we communicate about it, I think matters, and. I think they're more focused. I think we should be more focused on like, things like misappropriation of funds. Like, man, I'm tongue tied at the moment. But what I'm trying to say is like, I think that like part of us, most of the people on the right are very frustrated about taxes, but people, younger people who I guess we're starting to win with anyway, that's not as big of an issue for them, right? They're okay paying taxes if they feel like it's being used for something that's good and beneficial, and they also do think that people should pay their fair share, which I think is a problem. They don't realize that most taxes that are paid by the wealthy. They also ignore the reality that if you start overtaxing those organizations, those people or organizations, they can just move and go somewhere else. So anyway, my brain is all, but Graham Plantner is going to be doing an event with Troy Jackson and Bernie Sanders, I guess.
That's actually a pretty big deal. They're going to rally.
Are we going?
I don't think I can make it to it. It's too short notice. We need people on the ground. Or, I mean, it's good. Why are they trying to claim Maine so bad? We're a small state. And I know you said that it feels like there's more to play. I think that they're worried about losing Maine. They're worried about losing Maine, and they see this as an opportunity to seize it and reclaim the power structure, because I'm convinced that they want to not lock down the Northeast, but they want to secure the Northeast by any means necessary. And they're starting to lose touch in Maine due to everything that's happening. And if they don't put the energy and nip it in the bud right now, us on the right are going to flip it. We're going to turn Maine red, and they know that, which means that then you have New Hampshire and you have Maine, and that makes them worried. And then we start creeping back into Mass. They have to get back here because we're in the backside. We're flanking them from behind, right? They do not like that. People like you, Tim, everyone. There's like this rising movement in Maine, and we're mocking them online. They're getting ridiculed. All the media is getting attacked. They need a strong man, which the left will accept a strong man, especially when this happens. It's the first time I've seen the media actually talk favorably about guns, because this
really,
well, no, but what? he's a pistol. He's like there was an article from the Portland Press Herald talking about how he's a pistol shooter and competes or something with it. Like they're talking favorably about handguns with this guy, right?
Interesting.
Like everything they say is a lie. They've never cared about everything. They only care about power. The moment they can have like a strong man that's all about guns, they want it instantly. And so right now they know the mask is dropped. They're going to go full on, right? We're going to see, it's going to be freaking wild in Maine. It's going to be absolutely wild in the next 12 months. That's why.
No, sorry. But I mean, I think I think you've explained it, right? I think the reality is they know, right? This is how stupid the world. I say stupid, and hopefully nobody's offended, but like this is how dumb our society is. In all reality, is that we have the most ability to impact the thing that's closest to us, right? But what gets us out to vote is the national issues, right? That's where people are so largely it's we as individuals have made poor decisions and have allowed ourselves to have all of our energy diverted to what's happening nationally in Washington and ignoring what's happening in our backyard, right? That's why this podcast exists, to try and help people better understand that, right? But the reality is that's what they're trying to use. They know that people are so focused on the national, and that when it comes to coming out to vote, the thing that most people are going to come out to vote for the what is the item at the top of the ticket, and then they're going to vote down this largely the same party all the way along. Although that didn't happen as much as we would have liked in CD2. And that's part of the reason that Jared Golden prevailed against Austin Terrio. But it largely is what happens. People come out to vote for the top thing, and then vote all the way down the same. And so they're obviously are concerned about Maine, because like the reality is there's a lot of energy around and a lot of excitement around whoever's going to be the Republican gubernatorial candidate, right? There's a lot of money that I think is going to be spent in that race, more than has been spent in Maine in a long time for a gubernatorial race. And obviously Susan Collins is going to be bringing a ton of money. And so with all those things happening, there's a really good chance that we could take Maine, but we could win the House, the Senate, and the governorship, and then we control Maine. And as you said, we're coming in from behind, and we can overturn. And I think there's enough people, there are a growing number of people who are frustrated because let's talk about some of the facts. Why? So they're going to try to use this other stuff to and this guy's insane, get freebies to try and get people to vote for them. But they've been seeing that all along, and we've seen, what was it, like 36% increase in energy prices over the last year. Health insurance is about to go up by 30+%. And we already have seen taxes rise, and like the cost of living is just it's untenable here in the state of Maine. The increases that are happening, and anytime we have any complaints about it, they just like ridicule us. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I guess really I don't even know if we even need to inform people. People are kind of past that stage. They want action and organization.
Yeah.
And right. So like I actually, a long time ago, I made a prediction that like we were going to go through phases as we enter this, I guess, quote unquote, civil war. The first phase would be the awakeners, or the people that would educate the public. That would be a lot of independent YouTubers, people on Rumble, people that have social media, like we'll just say Tim Pool. They're just reading the news and saying, this is what's happening. The next phase will actually be those type of people are actually going to start to lose followers as everyone's like, okay, I've heard enough. Now what are we going to do about it? And you're going to have the rise of the organizers. And the social media people that are going to actually grow are going to be the ones that now take their platforms and use them as ways to organize. And that kind of leads into like us doing the Maine State Town Hall, right? So everyone keeps asking about like, when are we going to do like a consistent event where people can just get together and organize every other month, every other month, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
It looks like it's in the works right now. I talked to Matt Boucher, and he said he's calling up. I found out the pricing. It'd be about $350 every time we want to rent it. And we would have a bartender. We would have the Elks Club in Augusta, and we could rent out the entire bottom space and allow anyone just to show up and hang out and, strategize how we can actually maybe stop our opponents from taking power in Maine.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it sounds great. I mean, I think some people don't value the socials enough, but like, like a lot of these events that we go to and we've seen each other at, it's the conversations we have in the side that are just so valuable, because we have so many people that care about our state, and not all of them get an opportunity to share their ideas and have an opportunity to kind of talk about what can we do? How can we help fix our state? Like, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of just like complaining about, like, I got together with a guy this weekend who's here on X, Richard Hale. And he was, we spent a lot of time like just talking about how frustrated we are about like what, the Democrats are doing in general. But I think, that's part of it. Right. And then the other part is, okay, now that I've got that out, now how do we win? How do we take back our state? How do we coordinate together to more effectively do that? Like, how do we focus on, because like, there's a lot of criticism, and I think some of it is valid for sure, of the Maine GOP. Right. But part of my criticism is like, well, I mean, this is the responsibility of everybody. Everybody needs to be involved in this process. And I think this is another opportunity for people to be like, who are frustrated, who think that there's not enough being done, to kind of come out and get together, and we can talk about what we can do. Because the reality is, like, there's a lot that can be done that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, how did we come into existence, right? Like, I don't know how you got started, but I think you just started finding stuff, clipping it, and posting it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started during COVID, but yeah. So the lockdowns, so during, that kind of jump started. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and then during the COVID lockdowns and protests and all that, that's really when it started. And so I'm like a Google, like video editor, do some stuff, self-teach, hop online. I had never really used social media at the time. So I hopped onto Facebook. Actually, I started using my personal account for it. And I just started posting stuff, and things were like actually blowing up extremely fast. Started groups. Everyone knows the story. We were getting banned, accounts banned, groups banned, all that stuff. Then we started meeting in person. A lot of the people. So the reason I care so much about doing like a Maine town hall meeting every 2 months is that a lot of the most active people that I've ever found are the ones that are willing to go out to places. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, a lot of people will talk and share, and that's fine. Everyone has different roles, doing this type of stuff. But the people that actually show up to this, even if they're just coming out to say hello, they're they're willing to like volunteer, do work, is 1,000 times more than the random person that's just on social media.
Yeah.
That's just sharing something. And so, like the same people I saw during COVID, I see all those same people coming out. And if I go to any of them and I say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" It's for the cause. They do it instantly. They're always willing to jump aboard and help in what way they can do. If I say, "Hey, can you get this done?" They are so passionate and they're like, "Hey, this guy needs me to help find out this information on this lefty." And they come back and they almost everyone always succeeds when you give them a task, a role, and you guide them a little bit. I don't know. It's fun. We need to just have a social area where we can all meet up every 2 months, sit down for 2 to 3 hours, eat food, hang out, decompress, brainstorm, figure out who you work with best. I don't know. We have 12 months before we either lose Maine entirely. Like if we lose this election, we're cooked, right? And I don't mean like we're gonna lose Maine forever, but then what do we have? We're gonna be demoralized. A lot of people are gonna start thinking about moving out of Maine, especially if it goes too far left. The entire movement and GOP will be destroyed if we lose it.
Yeah, we're already struggling in that way. There's a lot of people since COVID, essentially, who have been conservatives who have been moving out, and so we're dealing with that challenge. And I know that there were people who were literally moving to Maine. I was talking to a pastor; they were moving to Maine from a blue state to because Maine was purple and they wanted to turn it blue. So literally, you've got Democrats who are moving here, to try and turn Maine blue, and Republicans are leaving because it is too blue. And so we've got that challenge. Like, here's kind of the tipping point: either we take it back and stop the bleeding, or it's going to be really hard in the future. And I was watching a podcast that with some people who are I think at 30,000, looking at things at 30,000 feet, and with a knowledge and of history and a number of other things that far surpasses me. But they talked about how New England is always where ideas has historically been what influences the rest of the country, and that's scary given how blue New England is right now. The Northeast, and we need to. But so we really need to do absolutely everything that we can to take back our state.
So I mean, Steve Robinson, if we could get him out to let's just say hypothetically we get the town hall meeting going.
Yep.
We get people like you, Steve Robinson, Tim, all the people in the media space. We do something like maybe 20 minutes of open mic where people can have 3 minutes to go up and just say, "Hey, I'm in this town, I'm running for this," or "Hey," just speak their mind, their grievances, right? And then we can kind of just because there's a bunch of tables, you have the bar, you have pool tables. People want to play a game of pool. Some people might want to have a couple drinks. We could order pizza for everyone.
Yeah. I was thinking pizza too. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, right. And it's not that expensive. Yeah. And then the background, what we should play quietly? All the AI videos we've been making. Right. And not that they're kind of quirky, but they're teaching us how to use new technology, new media, ways to actually attack the opponents. I know some people hate the AI stuff, but they have been effective in different ways. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I agree. I think putting stuff on that we've done, whether it's AI stuff or just like some of the highlights from the shorts that we've created, is also another fun one. Like I think it would be a lot of fun, just to to play some of those things. But you've created some like songs and stuff like that as well. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say who reached out to me, but there's some pretty big people reached out to me over one of the songs asking how to do it for the people that are running some big campaign stuff.
Okay.
That just reached out to one of my accounts.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I remember like the Shanna, there's the Shanna one.
Maybe like 20 of them.
Oh, you got 20 of them?
Yeah, at least 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can't keep.
Yeah, no, I know. There's so much content that's out there.
Yeah.
But I think that we just need a spot that and the thing is like, let's just say a politician is like, hey, there's these group of people, they're meeting in Augusta every 2 months. I need some people to do some groundwork and go volunteer, go door to door. They can come show up and lobby us. They can say, hey,
Yeah.
do you guys have anyone
Oh.
here that wants to do this?
I think especially this year, this would be so easy to get going because there's tons of gubernatorial candidates that would love to get out there and talk to people. But I think, I think the more we can do to, again, give people opportunities and kind of teach them and show them how to do stuff. And so I think like making sure that we have as little of an agenda as possible, I think is actually important, but having some small agenda, but like, a couple of points, but I don't want to have too much agenda. Because we tend to, I think as you said, we've depending on what the agenda is, right?
What about this? You have 20 minutes of open mic. We're just throwing this out. If you say, "Hey, Richard, I don't like this idea," just go, and then maybe like 5 minutes of or 10 minutes of updates of just letting people know what's going on, like critical things that are happening across. Like, hey, like this event's happening. Laurel Libby is doing this. Heidi Sampson's doing this. Alan Sarvinas is doing this. Like just updates of events. I don't know, because I just figure it's like doesn't have to. I just don't want it to be too controlled. Like. I think that people, they need to be able to create the bonds. We're not really creating bonds online. We're not, none the least bit. Yeah. And the part that people love the most, whenever we get to these gatherings or events,
is meeting people in person.
Yeah, chatting and stuff. We need to have a spot where it's an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of that to sit down, and then we can also you'll be in a conversation with someone and go, this person is really freaking good. They're not on X, they're not on Facebook. But then they have like this business or they're really skilled with a certain talent. We really need to have, and the left actually beats us on this. They are much better in person with things. We dominate them online in many of the spheres. Yeah.
So a good point that Happy Chick has made is that we need to use the fair in Litchfield, also known as the Common Sense Fair, as a really great opportunity. So September 20th, I think from like 10 to 6, I think is what the time frame that's open is. You should go check out the Common Sense Fair. I think they have a website or something through Main Stands Up, but and there's anyway, but check it out. Common Sense Fair at the Litchfield Fairgrounds on September 20th. It's going to be a great time for people to get together. But yeah, I think that like sounds like a really. I mean, I'm really excited about anything that we can do to get people together because, like you said, like online is not nearly it's not as real, if that makes sense. Like I think it's people who are willing to click a button, click like and share, which by the way, feel free. I love it. Like, share, subscribe. It really does help kind of build this up. But the reality is we need to be people who are doing stuff in person because that's what's going to have a significantly higher impact in changing our world and fixing, helping us make Maine red. Jeez, I'm stumbling over my words today.
That's right. So random days I'll be so off and I can't focus. I've been there many times. Well, yeah, I think that the right has a lot of untapped energy of people that want to do stuff. They just don't know. They're not being directed into what to do. And everyone has different roles. We need to just start having people get together. We have to. If 20 people show up, 50 people show up, 100 people show up, people can just form their own groups. They can talk. They can meet different politicians. And the first time I met Sobolewski, I was really impressed with the guy. And I was like, there's such a difference from seeing him online than actually finally shaking his hand in real life and just talking to him. And I'm like, this guy is actually very intelligent, speaks well, he's aggressive. Same with like Heidi Sampson or Laurel Libby. Any of these people, when I've met them in person, totally different experience. And if we hosted this as almost like not for any group and just, any of them can show up for any amount of time and just come down and say hi and just talk to people, grab the mic real quick. Have it be a little chaotic, a little bit of unpredictability. I think people would like that, and also to get out of their homes and be able to meet and talk and see each other and have some sort of connection off the internet. We need it. Our side needs it so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's really the grassroots, which is what we're talking about, right? That is going to make the difference in this election, in 2026. But also, like, just as a reminder, everybody should know this, probably knows this, right? There are two really important ballot initiatives, so we need to show up and vote in November. We need to vote in favor of the voter ID laws. They're about safeguarding our elections. The question should have been worded: do you want to safeguard our elections? And then whatever else they wanted to say after that, because that's ultimately through voter ID and other measures. That's what that bill is all about. So we need to get out. If you haven't already, go to voteridforme.com and sign the petition. And there are also ways to get a voter ID for me, like lawn sign. So I would encourage anybody to do that. We need to get that. We need to get that through, because without that, it's going to become it continue to be more challenging. We know from, again, as I kind of opened this talking about, that we know that there are people who are non-citizens that are registered to vote. Mainwire's done some great reporting on that. We need to get out to vote. And we need to do the grassroots thing. So we need to do whatever we can to get as many people out to vote as possible. It's interesting. This kind of leads me into another question or comment or conversation, I guess, is like, I know of like a number of people that I was talking to recently who just either are not registered or do not vote. And like, I just don't like, how do you motivate? How do you like, because I think like the idea, you had kind of talked about this the last time we were on, Richard, about how like people telling you to get out to vote did not motivate you to get out to vote. So like, how do we motivate people to care enough to do that without, I guess, how do we do that effectively?
Well, I think it's actually simple. I think it's simple, and politicians, a lot of politicians and political groups miss this. When someone says and they do it all the time, and we're going to use the voter ID thing, right? Like, obviously, I support voter ID and the initiative. But when someone says you need to get out and vote for this voter ID, is that how I would address someone if I wanted them to come to my birthday party or my cool event? Even if they listen, like, hey, remember, we're doing this on Saturday. We're all getting together. Why don't you, the way you address it, I don't go, hey, remember, you need to be at my birthday on Saturday. Why do we do that when we do it with election stuff, especially our side? And I've picked this up not because just creating this out of thin air. This is what the left does. They don't sit there and say, hey, we need you to go out and vote on this or vote on that. The way that they present it is more of like how you would ask someone like, hey, remember, we're going to the movie theaters on Saturday. I know this is kind of silly, but it would be like, hey, just make sure you come out here. I hope you can make it. We want to have a big turnout, have a bunch of friends get together. We haven't seen each other for a long time. The way to present it. And so the first time I ever voted, it was actually because of Matt Boucher and the way he actually addressed it to me. I was lazy. I never registered to vote. And he was just like, hey, you don't have to vote. And he goes, but I really want to win this. And he goes, have you ever thought about just registering and doing it? I'm like, nah. And I was honest with him. I'm like, I don't really want to. And he goes, I've never run for anything before. And he goes, but, if you find the time during the day or something, he's just like, I'd appreciate it. And I was like, you know what? No one's ever asked me in that way. And I went down and registered and I voted for him. And he won. He's registered deeds now. Like, and he's also is a member of the Elks Club and get us half off the cost for the renting the place. And he's actually calling up. So like, and he simultaneously is someone that worked with me during COVID, during the lockdowns and other stuff. So like, these things all are connected. They're all how you speak to people, who comes out, who's active. It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. Like me sitting there and being like, well, it's interesting. I think it depends on the person a little bit, but saying, can you help? Come, we're going to be doing this. It would be really great if you could. Those are much better approaches. Because when you tell somebody to do something, what is our human nature? We want to do the opposite. I can't remember what it was. Well, but I was hearing something.
It's not that. It's not that. It's wrong. And I've thought about that.
You don't think it's that?
No. It's because you're taking away the glory of the person doing it on their own. So like let's just say I want to clean the dishes for my wife.
Yep.
It's a lot different than if I volunteer to do it than if she says, let's just say you're about to volunteer and you're like, you know what, in 10 minutes I'm going to go do the dishes. But then the person says, hey, can you go do the dishes? You now taken away that charity that you were going to give. And now you're actually just doing out of, so I don't think it's that it's human nature to do the opposite, but you're taking away the person that is commanding you to do it is now getting the credit for your actions. And you want to be almost like getting the credit for your own action. So I think it's more along the lines of that. And then your ability.
It's taking away agency.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's taking away the agency. Yeah.
That is literally it right there.
It's so interesting because like I makes perfect sense. When I was in training for like crisis, I was going to be on the phones, and for a brief period of time I was for like rape crisis counseling back up in the Farmington area. And one of the things that they would tell you is like if somebody says that they're going to commit suicide, you don't take that off the table, right? If somebody says that they're at risk of that, you don't tell them, no, you can't do that. That's not an option, right? And the reason that you don't is because part of what has got them in a place where they're feeling that way is feeling like they're out of control of their own life.
Mm-hmm.
And so by taking away their something that they can control and telling them that they can't do it is going to make them feel more hopeless about their situation and drive them. Again, it's an aspect of, again, the human psychology. And so rather than telling them what they have to do, it's giving them an opportunity and kind of presenting it more that way so that they can choose in a way that's like, it would be really great. We need as many people as possible. We'd love to have you. That is much more encouraging, I think, to us. But we tend to fall into the other, like, oh, you better get out and vote. Partly it's kind of a tactic of desperation rather than of hopefulness as well.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And it's like a lazy way. And I'm guilty. Every person is guilty of.
I said it today.
I've done it, and I every time I catch myself saying it, like, if you want to win this, you need to vote now. Get out there and vote. It's just like, it's I don't know. It is rough.
Well, and that's the other thing that we tend to do on. I think this is a challenge of the right. Like this is like, how do we have conversations with people in a way that we might be able to lead to potentially, I think encouraging them in the right direction. And I think that's a question I don't know the answer to 100%, but I think we are challenged, and we kind of have that like kind of old school mentality that I remember. A friend of mine, after he had gone backpacking through India and a number of other places in third world nations, Indonesia, I think he was there as well. And he was talking about how people there didn't like America because of 9/11 related stuff, I think. And his mom just took it an opportunity to lecture him at that point. And do you think his mom convinced him of anything? No. And I love her. I think his parents are great people that I really love and appreciate. But that approach of, you don't agree with me, so therefore I'm going to lecture you, actually doesn't help convince people. If that makes sense. And I think we need to consider that in our conversations as well. Is like, how do we communicate in a way that is, well, have you considered this? Have you looked into? I challenge you to, Jesus, it knew it. Jesus, what do they say about Jesus? I think he answers 3 questions in the New Testament, and every other question that is asked, he either answers with a riddle, a parable as we call it, or a question. And he asks a ton of questions in general. And so rather than like directing people, it's more like, can we inspire people through like asking questions and rather than telling them things? Anyway, that's another.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because like, we don't really have an option not to address the election that's coming up right now, because you, me, everyone in the spheres that we've been for years, we've been sitting here going, here's all the problems in Maine. We want to turn Maine red, all the issues of the Democrats. If we don't dedicate all of our time for the next 12 months to winning this, or at least preventing them from taking all of it, then we might as well just stop doing the online social media stuff. We're just wasting time at that point.
Right.
We have to put our, I guess, what the money where our mouth is, or
our time, our
yeah.
energy. Like we need to prove that we actually, actually care by doing the things that are actually going to influence the election. I think that's the reality. As much as we love social media, and I think there is value here, otherwise I wouldn't be here, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is this only matters so much as it influences the other. Like, does it lead to people actually getting out and doing things? And I know for some people it does. I know that people have voted who otherwise wouldn't have voted based on some of the content that
Well,
we've
I mean,
created, and
is
and
it's
so
not really. It doesn't need to be our job to get people to go out and vote,
well,
per
that is
se,
one of the
right?
things that I'm trying to do for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well,
Eh,
here's a problem about,
but
okay.
yeah,
So when people vote, people don't want to participate in something where they're likely to be the loser. People want to
right,
win, right? And so to portray it, to get, I think some people don't vote because they don't want to do an action in which they'll lose. If they think that there's a chance or a higher chance that they're going to win this, and they can feel good about their vote, but no one wants to be a loser, and no one wants to vote for someone. That's why I think that people that lose by some of the people that lose by a lot is because no one believes that they can win. And unfortunately, I feel like that there is, if we don't turn this around, if we need someone like Laurel Libby to actually run for governor, because I don't think that where we're at right now, people are going to have a strong confidence for Republicans on our side. Because there's a massive amount of momentum on the left, because you have powerhouses like Shanna Bellows, you have Janet Mills behind her, you have this Graham guy, you have Bernie Sanders coming to Maine, you have Hannah Pingree, you have Angus King's son, you have you have Pingree's mom, Shelley Pingree, and then on the right you do have some good. You have great candidates, but we don't have we have Paul LePage, who's kind of doing his thing by himself. But we need to have a unifier that can help lead the right, because there's a bunch of positions on both sides. So what I'm noticing is that the left is trying to unify their base because they want to get all their people out and excited and vote down the board all for their candidates. We have to do something on the right for this. But we need to have people feel like who they're going to vote for could have stand a chance of winning. And the only person I can think of
right.
would be maybe Bobby Charles, right? Am I wrong?
I it's interesting. I don't know that there is there's enough clarity yet. We don't even know who's running. There is somebody says
Bush.
Bush. There's a
Yeah.
Bush who he's probably like he's obviously because he's got the last name Bush. Of the he's gonna have one of the best name recognition. But
But
Sean
right
Moody.
now,
Sean
but,
Moody may still. The rumors are he may decide to run, and he's got a really big name. Obviously, having run for governor twice and losing when Janet first got elected.
yeah, but don't they say that the more you lose, the worse the chances are of you winning every single time? I'm pretty sure that
It's possible. I mean, again, but that doesn't matter if it in the sense that like if he comes out and runs, he could win the
so
primary. I guess that's my
so like
overall point.
The Bush guy has the worst social media impact that I've seen on any candidate, even our lowest level ones. So like the Bush guy's account, the George W. Bush's,
Jonathan Bush.
yeah. So his interaction and his engagement is the worst out of the lowest tier politicians I've seen. Like out of anyone. Like we're talking like he has a full-on podcast that struggles to get 38 views on YouTube. And he's been on every single video, and he's been doing it for like half a year now. And he's not addressed. Yeah, go on YouTube. Bring it up on your screen. We're talking the worst social media. Like when you take someone like Graham Plattner, who's getting millions of views right out of the gate, and then you take someone that can't get 38 views. I know social media isn't going to win or lose an election, but it does give you a slight gauge on some things, right? Unfortunately, we don't like Shanna Bellows, but Shanna Bellows does get a lot of like interaction on social media, talked about on Reddit. You can kind of gauge a little bit of the public. So name recognition does go, so far. So does like organizing in real life, and so does social media. We have to learn how to like look at all the aspects. But this Bush guy, I don't think he stands a chance in hell with anything.
Well,
at all.
so the thing is, though, name
He's
recognition matters, and he's got good name recognition. So
yeah.
I do think that he has a chance. I think he has a chance of winning the Republican primary, but I also think that there's an outside chance that he could win. He could win it. He could stand a chance at a state level because again, name recognition, it's the number one thing. Number one most important thing because people don't think
that we knew of prior to the rise of the internet and social media. And that has changed. It has.
I think to a degree, but I honestly, I think a big part. I mean, obviously, like, so there's a couple things. The biggest thing is probably party affiliation, but I think the quality of the candidate is actually one of the most.
Now you can actually.
So I do think
it's changed, and I'm telling you, you're wrong on this.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. Okay, well, because back in the day, you didn't have the ability to actually listen or watch any candidates unless it was under a controlled system by the media, right? So now you do have the ability to go on and watch a Shannon Bellows speak. You can watch anyone, right? When you watch this Bush guy, he is the most boring, drab thing possible, and he is.
Really?
So,
did you watch the episode that I did with him?
No.
Okay.
No, maybe he could be a great guy, and this is probably unfair criticism. No, not boring. I should rephrase this. I'm sorry. The topics he chooses to talk about and not go after, the topics he goes for is so boring that no one wants to hear it.
Oh, okay. I haven't watched his podcast. I've watched maybe one or two clips on the shorts on Instagram. So I can't speak about his podcast, but I will say that like on mine, I thought it was a very engaging post and podcast, and I thought he was a real. And when I've engaged with him in person, I found him to be a very engaging individual. But like it's interesting because I haven't really looked into. I got to spend some time watching some of a full episode of his podcast or one or two. But ultimately, my point. You don't think
name recognition changed? So I understand.
I'm not saying that it hasn't changed. I'm saying that it's still a significant factor. Because so for instance, when they did some polling around, who I think there was a poll that was done about who is going to be the likely Republican nominee, and Laurel Libby was like number one. Sean Moody was number two. Here in the state of Maine, they were polling for gubernatorial candidates on the right, and then Jim Libby, I think, came after that. Bobby Charles was not very high at the time, and Garrett Mason was also in that. And so like, I think that's because Laurel Libby has a really big name. Everybody knows who she is, right? And I think, right, she's a politician, but she's also like been in the news. Sean Moody, same thing. It's because he's run in the past, and so that's where I think. But it's a name and a brand that people know, and like and trust already to a degree. And so I think that's where like the Bush comes into that conversation.
So there
is a segment of people in the Republican Party who fondly remember the Bush days.
And you have,
as I told him on my podcast, I feel like you've got all the Democrats and a lot of the independents are going to be against you because of the Bush name. You're going to start out in a negative space.
And Republicans.
And half, I would say half the Republicans, maybe 40%
if you have
of the Republicans. That's challenging.
All the Democrats, the independents, and half the Republicans. How does name help him?
Because you're already starting ahead of other people who are unknown, and there's in business they say, or even not just in business, they say no news is bad news, no press is bad press, right? Even bad press. So like the reality is, because of the fact that he's known, people already it's a starting point where he's ahead of other people. Is there some negative associated with it? Absolutely, but I think it still gives him a higher launching point. I'm not saying that he's going to be the candidate who's going to win. I have no idea at this point, and I'm not endorsing anyone. And I think that it's a challenge for him more than I think it gives him an initial starting point, but I do think that it creates a big challenge for him especially in the general election. But if he were to get in there, I think I'd rather have him than any of the Democrat candidates, and that's what I would say for. So I think the other piece is, you need somebody who's going to be able to raise a lot of money. And even in the days of the internet, because here's the reality, like we have to convince the people who are not getting their news from social media as well. We have to get in front of them, which is why, the Common Sense Remain PAC, they're talking about, spending money, on CN, like to advertise to people in the middle and on the left, right? This is where, and so you're going to need a lot of money behind the candidate. And so like, I think, I don't think just a grassroots campaign, is enough. I think money is needed in order to be able to win. I think that's a big part of it. And who has the ability to raise large amounts of money? That's a big part of the question. Yeah.
So where does that Bush guy land on like the transgender stuff, the woke stuff? Like, what's his positions on any of these things?
So what I'll say in general is I think all of our candidates that have declared so far are saying all the right things on the right issues.
I haven't heard it. I just don't know. I haven't. Yeah. I was looking through his YouTube channel, and it was pretty like there's no interaction at all.
Yeah.
None of his social media gets any interaction. It gets like negative interaction. So anyway, to kind of backtrack though, like I feel like I would say Paula Page has the best influence right now with Bobby Charles on social media when it comes to our candidates, right?
Yeah, I think Bobby is definitely, out in front. I think that he got started earlier, and he has been strategizing about this, I think, for a longer period of time. I think he's got a leg up in that sense on the competition. He's getting out there, and he's also making a name for himself in the way in which he's going after the other side. So I think that puts him at an advantage. But again, the people with bigger dollars are just starting to get involved in the race. I think there are a couple of candidates who I think have, obviously Bush, Ben Midgley, who just declared recently, is supposed going to be spending a lot of money, is my understanding. And I think he's kind of maybe a little bit more moderate, but again, when it comes to like all of the major issues that are like big issues today, he is, he's on our side. I think he's probably, I haven't actually heard him talk about this, but I believe he might be more pro-choice to a degree than some of the other candidates. But outside of that, like he's saying all the things, and I understand, True Slinger. I agree with you that politics was not meant to be a rich man's club, but we live in we have to live in reality, the world as it is, not the world as we hope it would be. And it, like I think it's somewhere around 95% of the time, the candidate that spends the most money wins. That's it's not 95, it's over 90 though. Obviously candidate quality does trump that though, right? And Trump is a great example of that, where Trump spent a third of what Kamala Harris spent and still won, right? So we don't have to spend the most money. It's not necessarily the candidate who spends the most money who's going to win, but that is an element that needs to be taken into account, is how much money they have access to. I love, Wessels. He's a really great guy. But I think that's one of the areas where he's a little bit struggling, where he's not, bringing in a ton of money, but he's done other things that kind of, in some ways, overcomes that by getting out and talking to people, and he's been doing that for almost 2 years. But still, you got to get on the commercials, and I think it's gonna be a challenge for him to do more to get his name out there. As far as the Planet Fitness CEO BLM stuff, hippie chick, I think I called you happy chick earlier. I apologize, but that's regarding Ben Midgley, and that's one of the things that Bobby Charles immediately launched at him, I think the day before he was set to declare. And look, it's a great question. We're going to find out, because Ben's coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks, and I will ask him specifically about that. We will talk about what Bobby Charles had to say about him, and we'll hear he'll hear what he says.
Who do you want to have to organize and lead the Republicans for 2026 for all the different races?
Who do I want to?
Look,
Gosh,
because right now it looks like Bernie Sanders is kind of coming in to lead, and then Graham Plattner is going to organize the Democrats here and direct them in the direction that they want to go. Who do you think should come? I don't think it could be Paula Page. I think Paula Page can be in the top, but not the leader. Maybe I
what
could
do
be
you
wrong.
mean? What do you? I'm not sure
Well,
what you're saying. Like you saying like somebody from outside to come and help us,
no,
like a
no,
Bernie Sanders,
it could
or
be inside, it could be outside. So what it appears like, so what's happening is that like on a national stage, you're having Democrat. We're going to call them Democrat socialists. Like it's like the new brand. They're starting to go behind. They're trying to unify each other in different areas and win elections. So like there'll be like seven people are running, but even if only one, obviously primaries, everyone's getting behind. There's like there's almost like a leadership. It's hard to even explain because it's not being done officially. But you have like Bernie Sanders, you have Graham. Graham's going to end up kind of paving the way, and I'm sure Graham and like Shannon Bellows is going to get along pretty well. They have the same ideology. Like because they're going to get the base to go out and vote for them in all the different ones, whether it's Senate, whether it's going to be local, whether it's going to be the governorship, whether it's going to be any referendum questions. They're going to try to get their base to go out forward and fight. Are the Republicans just going to be all scattered like random stray cats? Or is there going to be?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably. I mean, that's how. I mean, like, so there's pros and cons about the way that the Republican Party is, right? We're the party that just wants to be left alone. Leave me alone. Let me do my own thing. We're very independent, which is why you have, so much like in a sense like division and discoordination within the party is because people are unique and kind of doing their own thing. And, you have 150 opinions when you have like 30 people in the room, and so it's a challenge, but I do think that like we do need to unify around I think it's around a candidate. And like I would prefer, but I'm stumbling over my words today a little bit, but like I partly because of my role in doing this podcast and partly because of my role as the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans, I can't endorse a candidate, or I'm saying I can't endorse. Nobody's telling me I can't. I just think I think it's unwise, because I want to be able to use this platform to give every one of those candidates a voice, to be able to let the people decide who they want to be the person. But we need to find somebody. We need to unify around them. Preferably, we need to do that before the primary in June of next year.
Okay.
So the primary is not until June, but then we have to. Then it's all of a sudden after that we've got to shift and focus on whoever won instead of like who our candidate is. And I think that there are going to be, it's very possible that Laurel Libby is going to join the race. I suspect that a lot of that will depend on whether, because I had heard rumors that she was going to declare a couple weeks ago and it didn't happen. And so I don't know if she's going to declare at all. And I do think that there's a really good chance that she waits to see how things go with the voter ID thing, since that was her initiative at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And if that ends up being successful and winning, then maybe she declares. If that fails, I think she continues to run for House. But there's a lot of people that think she's going to run. And so, I think if she runs, she would be hard to beat, even regardless of how much money she has, because of the fight that she's been going through and how like firmly she pushes back against the left in Augusta. But she has other challenges, right? I mean, I think that within the main GOP, there are people that like her and there are people that don't like her as much. They appreciate what she's doing, but not everybody loves her tactics and the ways that she goes about things, right? So there are a lot of challenges, I think. So I don't think that there's a clear cut, this is definitely our candidate kind of person anyway. There are some people that would seem to suggest that, hey, we're a blue state. But, so like we probably, in order to be able to win, need somebody who's a little bit more moderate. And so that's where I've heard people make arguments for people like Ben Midgley or Jonathan Bush. And, I think that some of these arguments and people attacking them for, maybe being a little bit more, I think Midgley in particular with the BLM stuff that was happening with Planet Fitness when he was the CEO there, they could, it's kind of, like I said, go after him for that. Those will be badges of honor in the general election if he ends up winning, right?
Whoa, did you see
But oh wow, Bad Bake is saying that Maine House Republicans just called for Shenna Bellows' resignation. Over what, I wonder? That's great that they did. I think she absolutely should resign. She's running for the position, and she also is just not incompetent. I wish she were incompetent. She's malicious, is what I would say, in trying to keep Trump off the ballot, and even defending that decision more recently. But anyway, yeah, I think we need to unify around a candidate, but I think we need to be mindful of like who, because we need to win. And I think that one of the challenges, the wrench that gets thrown in. I mean, LePage won in 2020. Not 2020, whenever it was 2010, I think, and he won in part because it was a three-way race, right? And so this year we are going to have a three-way race. However, the person who is running running as an independent is a former Republican who voted to keep boys and girls sports. Going to have him on the podcast in the near future as well, Rick Bennett. And the fact that you've got a Republican who's probably more likely to sway Republican voters to his cause than he is Democrat voters to his cause, that's going to create an additional challenge in a blue state. And so, like, we have it's an uphill battle. I think we can win, right? We can win, but it's going to require us to work really hard. We got to get voter ID passed. I think that's a necessity. And we need to unify around whoever the candidate ends up being and work really hard for them. That's what we've got to do.
And there might be ranked choice voting possibly in the election.
So technically, there is a question about that, but so there is ranked choice. So in any primary, ranked choice voting is part of the state's process. So the state is the one that handles the election, if that makes sense. However, we don't have the Republican Party does not have to honor that. They cannot dictate to us that we have to use ranked choice voting, but the ballots will be created with ranked choice voting options, but we can choose to decline that as a party. This is my understanding. So
because otherwise it would be a massive sheet with at least 10 crisscrossing all, like, that's ranked choice voting with 10 candidates would be pure insanity. Like,
yeah, well, it's going to be, I mean, like I said, the ballots will be that way, but but the Republican Party, because we get to decide who our candidate is, right? It's not up to the state to tell us that we have to use a different voting method. So even though the ballots will be printed that way, we can just do, I think it's what's called a plurality. Is that what it is? I think where they just, whoever has the most votes wins. So that's if that makes sense. So the ballots are still going to be printed that way, but your first vote is ultimately all that should matter. I mean, we'll see, but I'm pretty confident. Maybe I'll ask Chris Parker when she comes on the podcast, and she's the communications director for the Maine GOP. Going back to like the Maine House Republicans calling for Shenna Bellows to resign, it says the letter that sent recommending that cites her failure to prioritize her job responsibilities over partisanship and her campaign, which I think is that's no surprise to any of us on the right. But she's obviously very partisan in the way in which she worded both of the ballot initiatives and tried to keep Trump off the ballot, obviously. So anyway. I don't think she's going to listen. That would be my guess, but time will tell. But anyway, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should probably. I gotta get off to my next thing today, but yeah, it's been a fun, good conversation. Thanks for everybody who chimed in and asked questions. Really appreciate the interactions, and we need to we need your help. We hope you can help us win in 2026 and win we as many people as possible. Let's get out. We can win voter ID. I do think it's possible. We just need to do it. So let's make it happen. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow I've got David Giles, who's running for House 27. Obviously, that race is next year, but he's getting out there ahead of time, and he wants to talk about education and why we should be putting more. I think it's about he's pro public education, not necessarily that he thinks things are going well, but that we need the answer. I think he's not in favor of um, school choice, because he thinks that we need to keep kids in the public education system. We just need to improve the public education system. That's where we're going to have that conversation tomorrow. So check us out 3:00 and look for shorts. So everybody, thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, check out the shorts, get those out to people to let them know what's going on in our world. And do what we can to help, because we're in the middle, as we've said in this podcast, we're in the middle of an ideological civil war or world war, and in order to win it, we need people like you to step up and do your part and do what you can, and whatever your skills, gifts, talents, and abilities are, let us know. If you need help, if you're like, I could do this, maybe that's a need that we have to help win the movement. But hopefully next time we come back here in the next couple of weeks, we'll come up with a date where we can all get together for our first town hall in Augusta at the Elks Lodge. Thanks again. Thanks, Richard.